Oh my god. All right. Conspiracy theory iceberg layer 3 coming right up, baby. Baby. All right, let's
Hello, everybody, and we are...
Hey, he got a mic. Let's freaking go. Let's go.
What is up, everybody, and we are on to Tier 3. Now, as you can probably see from the video title, this is not going to be the entire Tier 3. And I'm sorry about that, but my reasoning for it is this. We are past most of the standard theories, and a lot of the stuff we're getting into now is either super, like, old-world spiritual, or crazy ideas in physics, or these theories and places you've never heard of that I've got to go into explanation on. So, it was either going to have to be, I'll skip out on theories, not explain as much, which is lame.
No, you're doing good, dog. Dude, check this out. Oh my god, Tier 3. Dude, I am so excited. Let's freaking go. I'm so happy I have a VPN right now. Oh my god, some fun stuff coming. The dancing plague. That's crazy. I heard of that. Oh my god.
First up is singularity. Singularity has two base definitions. The first is the idea of an infinite zero in an equation. So in things such as a black hole, density is calculated infinitely, which is the reason a black hole exists. However, the version that I think the theory is referring to, because there's more reference to this type of thing in this tier, is the idea that humanity will eventually reach a point of no return with technology, meaning that at some point we will either develop ourselves to such a dependence on technology, or to a point that AI will be equal to humanity, and there will be no coming back from it. So there are theories that we've already hit that singularity point, or that we are very quickly about to, and this relates to ideas on both sides of transhumanism, who think that's a good thing, and people who believe that technology has progressed too far and that we should quit while we're ahead. Quantum suicide and immortality is a tricky one to understand, but I'm going to try to do my best to you. I'm going to need to explain some ideas in quantum mechanics, so bear with me. I am not a physicist, but I will do this. The word quantum itself refers to super small microscopic particles. I'm talking pieces of atoms as they move around. What's interesting about atoms and electrons...
Dude, is he actually going to explain to me quantum physics? What baby doesn't know what quantum physics is? Y'all gamers in chat don't know quantum physics? Oh my god, cringe!
Is that we never know at one point where they are. They're constantly moving, never setting still. So what that means is that we always predict where they'll be, or have an idea of the estimation of where they'll be. Obviously, this is very different from real-world logic. I can point at you, or a thing at the wall, or the Travis Scott vinyl back there, and know for sure that it is there, that it is a tangible object. However, you can't do that with atoms. What's interesting is that this doesn't just apply to one atom. It applies to two atoms, or three, or four, in clusters. So there has to be a point, somewhere, where atoms quit being atoms that are judged quantumly, and begin becoming objects that can be judged logically. This goes back to the whole idea that if you have a heap of sand, and you periodically take one grain of sand out, it never quits being a heap. But by that logic, by the time you get down to one bit of sand, that's still technically a heap, unless there's some rule that changes it somewhere. If we apply quantum mechanics to real large world creations, such as humans, or chairs, or what have you, that's where we get into ideas like Schrodinger's cat. Schrodinger's cat is the idea that if you were to take a cat and to put it in a box, then inside this box there was a mechanism that had a 50% chance of killing
it. 50% chance of living.
Would be both dead and alive,
baby!
Now remember, this is all applying to quantum mechanics. So if the way atoms work are, we don't know how they are until we look at it at a specific moment and say, oh, that's it, then something larger, like a cat, would have the same rules applied to it. So by Schrodinger's cat logic, or Schrodinger's law, things in the real world are not manipulated until you look at them. But obviously that isn't true, because things can happen without us directly looking at it. The inverse to Schrodinger's law is something called Copenhagen's law. Copenhagen's law states that if something happens in our world, then that is the only thing that happens. That there was a series of random events that could occur that led to this specific instance occurring, and that's it. That's all she wrote, that there's only one way it happens. Quantum suicide and immortality is a theory that kind of straddles between the two.
All right.
It was developed by a man named Hugh Everett, who was, from everything I found, kind of a jerk. For example, his daughter attempted suicide, and he simply glanced up from his notebook and thought nothing of the situation. He was a very callous man, and this is a very callous look at reality. It takes the idea of Schrodinger's cat, that there are unknown uncertainties when it comes to how things react in the real world, and we only change it by observation, and applies Copenhagen's law that whatever happens in our world is simply what happened, and that's how the dice fell. Quantum suicide and immortality is very closely related to what we know as string theory, or the idea that there are multiple expanding universes in every direction. It says that every single one of these unknown uncertainties is played out in a different universe. Those familiar with string theory will know what I'm talking about. Every decision that you could make is made in a separate branching off pathway, and this goes on infinitely forever.
That's the multiverse
Quantum suicide
theory.
and immortality is applying this to the person.
I don't know why that's a theory. I mean, why he's putting it as quantum suicide. That's just multiverse theory.
Saying that if you are a depressed individual, or if you are a very lively, happy individual, every single change in your character will be played out across these different timelines.
Yeah.
Which means there are some where you always commit suicide. And this is rather dark, but like I said, he was a callous man. Or there are some where you live forever. His thought process on this being, if you live to be 100 and your heart simply stops, well, there's a branching off universe where your heart goes a second longer, and another one where it goes a second longer, and on and on and on. Which means there are infinite universes where you commit suicide or die forever, and ones where you live on forever.
Yo, that's so cool! Oh my god, I never thought of it that way. That's crazy. Okay, but it's not accurate either. Okay, it's interesting to think about, but it's not accurate. Some people would never commit suicide, so there would be no universe. It's based on choice, right? It's based on every possibility. There's no possibility that I will live forever. So since there's no possibility of me living forever, there will be no universe where I live forever. Yes, it could be a second longer, but there is a point after 200 years that just, it's an impossibility. There would be no universe where I would be immortal. But it's an interesting thought. Multiverse is baloney? Yeah, I don't believe in the multiverse theory either. I really don't like the multiverse theory for many reasons. I think it's such a cop-out and there's literally no proof to it. Like, there is no evidence to the multiverse theory.
There will be public opinion that denies sort of publicly accepted ideas of genocide and things that have happened, and there will also be governments who deny accusations towards them of their involvement in genocide, and so on and so forth. It goes both ways. Roko's Basilisk is another thought experiment that comes from an online user who went by the name of Roko. He developed the idea that if AI is to come to a point of singularity, or to where it gets so powerful that it's smarter than us and starts to kill us, it would be beneficial now to help it. Because after this AI becomes so super intelligent, it may begin killing people who weren't part of its creation. While this is already kind of a logical fallacy, the whole idea of you have to do evil to prevent evil from happening to you and blah, blah, blah. What's interesting about it is some of the more hypothetical theories that it gets into, and there's so many I won't go into them, but ideas that this AI may, since it can manipulate time, go back in time and simply stop people from being born who wouldn't help it, so everyone that's alive now is people that would only help it, or that the AI itself has simply come back in time to silently watch and see what people will lead to its creation, and so on and so forth. It's essentially a cautionary tale about AI, and while this is a more submissive answer to it, like, we gotta help it or else, it's used in a lot of circles about the dangers of AI itself. Torrid is a really cool one I remember hearing about several years back, specifically the Man from Torrid, as it's called. The story goes like this. A man entered a Japanese airport and was caught at exchange because his passport was weird. It said that he was from a country called Torrid, and it had his full information, date of birth, all of it was correct except the country of origin. The security...
Wait, what? Infopolis Torrid? What the hell? What is with this picture?
Pulled him to the side and began asking him questions about this country, to which the man was confused and kept replying that he's simply from Torrid. As a matter of fact, he pointed to it on a map, saying that that map was incorrect because it's supposed to reside between Germany and France. He gave correct accounts of information through history, like World War II and the Soviet Cold War. He gave numbers for them to call, which all proved to be non-existent, and this lasted for some time. That night, the security put him in a hotel so that they could figure out what to do, and the next day when they went to get him, he was gone. There was no evidence of him.
Oh my God!
And he was never seen again. A lot of this relates back to the Mandela effect that I mentioned in the first year. There are these parallel universes that keep interacting with one another, but it's interesting, the idea that there is a different, slightly different world from ours. Still at events like Cold War and World War II, that resulted in the creation of a new country called Torrid. The bloop.
Wait, what? That's creepy. Dude, that's a creepy story, but okay. The bloop.
Something that personally affects me because it has to do with my worst fear ever, the ocean. In the early 2000s,
Whip! Coward! Pussy!
Ocean researchers had several microphones placed across the Pacific Ocean, the purpose of it to be to monitor blue whale migrations. That was until, out of nowhere, from a location that was triangulated to be the bottom of the ocean, there was a bellowing roar that was so loud, it was picked up by microphones in a 3,000-mile radius direction. To put that in perspective, the vocal cords, or whatever this thing would, had to be 3 times the size, at least, of a blue whale. To this day, no one knows where it came from, and it has been the subject of several conspiracies or monster theories about things that live beneath the ocean, which is just further confirmation to me that I don't belong in the ocean. Rosicrucianism is closely related.
Dude, that's crazy, dog. Oh my God, that's really creepy. F the ocean? Dude, I don't know. There are so many, like, sea monster theories. God damn.
To an old religion that was a branch off of Christianity some 800 years ago, known as Gnosticism, or Gnosticism, not sure how to pronounce it. It essentially followed
Gnosticism. Gnosticism is another way to pronounce it. It's the opposite of agnostics.
It's the idea that God and the Trinity is real from Christianity, but that there are lesser gods, and each of them are mandated to do different things. More specifically, the idea that the lesser God that created Earth is evil and mischievous, and that's why there's so much sin and misery on our Earth. While good things come from Christ and Godhead, bad things come from our smaller God. Rosicrucianism, from everything that I can find, believes this theory but applies more science into it. Where this applies is that almost everything I found about Rosicrucianism applies to the Masons. The idea being that several of the founders of the Freemasons subscribe to this ideology, and were not only that, but were sort of high priests in this order. So the idea of deidal Christianity mixed with phenomenal science creating the Freemasons stays in line with most of the theories that apply to them. Sinkholes are exactly what it's referring to.
Sinkholes are scary as hell. You see, you're scared of the ocean? You're scared of the ocean? Absolute pussy-ass bitch? I'm not talking to you, Mr. Wendigoon-san. You seem like a nice guy. I'm talking to Chat. Chat that's scared. You scared of the ocean, little nutzos over there? I was gonna say a word that might get me banned on Twitch, so I'm not gonna do it. Yeah, come on. Sinkholes. This is where you should be, like, this is where the fear should be at. I mean, I'm not scared of sinkholes. Because, if a sinkhole opens below me, I die, so worrying doesn't help. But if I wouldn't believe in that philosophy, I would be scared of sinkholes, okay?
Holes, for those that don't know, periodically, especially in man-made areas, giant holes in the ground can open up, and I mean huge.
Just it doesn't just out of nowhere.
Where man-made. items are, but that's normally where it happens. A lot of the theories around this go back to the idea of gods and stuff, that we have overpopulated the Earth too much, and so it's cleansing itself.
Okay, I don't know about
back
that.
to harmonic vibrations on the Earth, and make your own calculations from it. But that's just what the theory is referring to. The Publius Enigma dates back to Pink Floyd's 1994 album, The Division Bell. Someone by the name of Publius appeared online and began saying that there was a secret message hidden in the album, The Division Bell, and anyone that figured it out would be given great reward. Now, while you could just chalk this up to some crazy person on boards, they seem to know a whole lot about Pink Floyd and the album itself, and when questioned about their legitimacy, they said to watch the stage at the next Pink Floyd concert, to which the lights began flashing in code the name of Publius.
That's so cool.
Obviously, this guy has connection somewhere. Despite this, there has never been any huge secret, at least from what I can find, derived from the Division Bell album, and most people believe it to be some huge sort of like paparazzi show from the agents who put together the album, but
cool,
everyone
though.
exclusively denies this. So who is Publius and what's the secret of the Division Bell? Russian sleep experiments are a supposed experiment that was uncovered that happened in
this is
Russia
the sleep
during World War
raging
II.
stuff?
And while you may be familiar with the famous creepypasta that I was before looking into it, the creepypasta comes off of the supposed real-world documentation. The idea of this experiment was to develop a drug that would give soldiers the ability to stay awake for days at a time without side effects or crashing. However, according to the legend, what happened during these experiments is that as the days progressed, the test subjects became more and more insane to the point that they completely lost touch with humanity.
I heard of
and
this.
became these groveling monsters that asked for pain and wanted to hurt each other, and they ripped someone's throat out.
Oh my
yada, yada, yada,
God.
goes on and on. There are logs of this, which you can look up and read yourself, supposedly what happened. There's a lot of gore and violence involved, but it all relates back to the idea that whenever we sleep, we
This is literally me if I don't get my beauty rest.
stave off this inner demon that we all have inside of us. And without sleep for weeks at a time,
Okay, I don't know
we
about sleep staving off inner demon. It just keeps your sanity in check.
allow it to become more powerful until eventually it takes over. It all relates to the overarching concept of the evil within every human. Esoteric knowledge is kind of broad. From everything that I've found, it
Okay,
has to do with human intentions.
that means
So
nothing.
esoteric knowledge would be a true understanding of what it is in your brain that makes you do the things you do or behave the way that you are. Esotericism is mentioned a lot in things like Gnosticism or Rosicrucianism and other old religions that are kind of the development for a lot of conspiracies. The Denver airport is an interesting one, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard of. For one, the layout of the Denver airport makes absolutely no sense. The way it's built with its hallways that go seemingly nowhere and terminals that are completely separate from everything else doesn't make a lot of sense on the outside. However, when you look at old plans that had the idea of there being a giant underground, and there supposedly isn't one, it comes to the theory that it is a secret bunker, either by the military or some say the Illuminati and things such as.
Oh, okay, interesting.
But the theory just doesn't stop there. For one, there are some really weird art pieces around the Denver airport. For example, there is a painting of a German Nazi in a gas mask with rainbows coming out of him and a giant scythe.
In the airport in Denver, there's a painting of a Nazi with a scythe?
As well as a statue outside of a 32-foot tall horse that is blue with red glowing eyes that people refer to as Blucifer, which
What the frick? Blucifer? Oh my god!
during its construction, the head fell off, killing the creator, to which they put the head back on and left it. And
Oh my god, that's so scary! What the frick, you Denver nutcases? Bro, and I thought Detroit was bad.
on top of that, there are signs all over the Denver airport that says it was created by the Freemasons and it's a Mason establishment and blah, blah, blah. And theories range from the idea of Denver airport being the gateway to hell to just the idea that it's a secret military or Freemason
Okay, gateway to hell might be a little too much.
base that is kept quiet from the public. Spirit science is exactly what it says. The idea that scientific concepts can be related to spiritualism and things like auras and chakras and things such as, and that through
I do
application of
believe
spirit
that.
science you can unlock or understand your inner self. The plane of jars is
To an
interesting.
extent.
In Laos, there are these fields that are all grouped together that hold anywhere between 1 to 400 of these giant 9-foot wide stone jars. They've all been carved out from stone, most of them have lids with them, and they're just sitting in these fields and no one knows where they came from. The locals in the area talk of legends and say that giants used to roam this land. And
Oh,
there's, again,
baby!
giants being mentioned from
Giants,
the
let's
and then what they
go!
would do is they would carve out these stones and set them in these fields, and that's where they keep their alcohol and honey and things such as, and each field was a different keeping place for a different material. Sadly, not a lot of research or insight can be done to this place, because during Vietnam, the United States dropped more explosives on specifically the field of jars than the entirety of World War II.
Wait, what?
And that combined with all of the undetonated explosives there, mean research is very, very scant and dangerous to do, so I guess we may not know more about this, but I like the giants idea. It's cool. Beacon of Hate was discovered on June the 2nd of 2000, in which a man in the western United States began picking up on this radio transmission that was being broadcast locally, and after enhancing it, he found a looping broadcast in which someone was screaming over and over about America selling themselves to camels, and pornography and religion should die, and
Wait, what?
the end times is coming with a chariot, and other mixes of like Revelations type speak, and general disdain for the United States, so on and so forth. This was looping for, as far as he could tell, about 8 months before it disappeared. To this day, the FCC has better things to do. There have been no information found on it, no one knows who caused it or what happened, and it simply remains a mystery. Feral children is a real-world phenomenon, which is quite sad, in which kids who either ran away or were abducted at a young age and lived away from human contact simply became feral. This is observed a lot whenever researchers go to lesser populated areas.
This is just Twitter, right? He's talking about Twitter? Where parents give their kid an iPad, and then they become feral. They end up on Twitter for a couple of months, and that's it. They devolve from the humans that we know and love to feral children, as he put it.
Areas such as forests and jungles in which children have been allowed to get away from their families and been raised in the wilderness. Normally the child is very either scared of human interaction or violent around humans and resolves to things such as running on all fours, but it can also result in some very interesting side effects such as different form bone structure and nasal pathways.
Alright, I don't know about that for Twitter, guys, but
that are simply just, evidence of adaptation in humans. It's interesting, however, that when taking away from other human contact in these sort of case studies, that we become animalistic. Anti-natalism is a more recent ideology. Natalism is the idea that having children is good and, having a baby is good, whereas anti-natalism is the opposite of that and says that having a child is morally bad. The idea with this theory being that if the higher-ups or Illuminati or whatever have you is trying to dissolve the family unit, then this idea of anti-natalism will be put out more and more across the human populace until eventually families or having children or things such as is seen as a natural bad. Charles Fort is someone that I wish that I knew about before getting into this because he seems like an interesting individual. He wrote several fiction books which have to do with different occurring phenomena, such as teleportation, human combustion, ball lightning, etc. What's more interesting is ideas such as teleportation and ball lightning he's actually credited with inventing. What goes furthermore is in that most interviews where he talked about these phenomena, he simply said that in studying real-world phenomena, they are things that he observed. The idea with this being that because of Charles Fort's writings, we have highlights to some things that really do happen, such as human combustion, teleportation randomly, ball lightning, so on and so forth. To the point that a term given to real-world supernatural events is Fortean, such as giant unexplainable monsters can be called Lovecraftian. Also, everything else I found on Charles Fort generally relates back to the occult, with several sort of scientific occult circles claiming him as one of their founders. The Road to Rudo was a comic book put out by the federal government for school children.
Wait, what? Whenever you have like these school children books put out by the government, it's like, okay, what are they doing to my children? Are they indoctrinating my children again? Okay, dude.
The point of this book was to teach children concepts such as scarcity and market value and things such as. However, a man by the name of Bix Weir later came out with his own theory regarding the comic. His idea is that large governments are getting tired of banking circles owning the world through their amounts of money they loan out and things such as, and it all has to get back to Wall Street and national banking circles and blah, blah, blah. But his idea is the comic is showing a federal idea to get back to a new gold standard, or the idea that after a great reset, so to speak, which is being talked about a lot now in the news, that we could reverse our current banking circle idea and return to a second gold standard, as he calls it. Mereological nihilism is another one of those thought concepts. It's the idea that there are no things that are composed of other things. They are simply the smaller things made into bigger things. What I mean by that is there's no such thing as a chair. There are pieces of wood in straight lines that are pointed together in chair fashion. While this whole thing seems kind of pointless in that regard, as you apply that more and more to people and biology and things such as, it becomes more of an idea.
Okay, I'm a clump of cells, alright? But I'm a clump of cells with a good sense of humor. Okay, so shut the hell up, Mr. Mereological Nihilism. That be cringe, okay? I am a clump of cells that will kick your ass, nihilist man.
Sort of nihilism when it comes to science and humanity. The Cagots were interesting considering I had literally never heard about this until starting a review for this. The Cagots were a race of people in 16th and 17th.
The Cagots is really close to a word that would get me banned on Twitch.
France, who were horribly discriminated against. And by horribly, I mean that whenever entering the town, they had to ring a bell like a leper so that other people know they're around. Not only that, but they had to walk with shoes on at all times or be arrested.
They had to walk with shoes on? Oh, anything but... Okay, I'm sorry. I just had to... I'm sorry. I feel bad these guys were discriminated against. They're pretty ugly.
So that way their skin didn't touch the ground that other barefoot people had to walk on.
My God.
They were not allowed to farm. One Cagot who tried to, on his own land, had stakes run through his feet. And they had to use a specific font when writing. That way people would know a Cagot wrote it. If they didn't, as happened to one man, he had his hand cut off and pinned to the church door. And there were several rumors that spread up about them. Like, because they wore shoes all the time, people said that they had web feet. Or because they only wrote in one font, children would say that that's because they have the devil's handwriting. What's really weird is no one knows where they came from. They seemingly look like any other French person. The ideas were they came from a defeated...
This dude does not look like it. Did this man just say this dude looks like any other French person? Really? You doing this? You doing French people like this, my guy? Poggers, yo! That was a sick pause moment.
Army during the Goth period, way back, but that can't be confirmed. Ideas are that they are people from north of the English Channel who came south and were simply shamed against, but that can't be confirmed. So seemingly this race just pops up in France, is horribly hated, and then disappears. It wasn't until the French Revolution, in which several Cagots went to record offices and burned any information that they were Cagots, and simply assimilated back into French society.
Yo, I never heard of Cagots. That's crazy.
That happened called Sea Lab, which were carried out by the United States Navy. The idea was to place these science capsules in different spots around the ocean for researchers to live in and do research from. The first two went off without a hitch. However, the third one during its setup, someone went down to fix a carbon monoxide poisoning problem and died in the process, so the Navy shut the entire thing down. The theory is that these experiments are still being carried out in secret for whatever reason, and the idea that it was kept out of public eye, not because someone died, but because they wanted to start research on something the public shouldn't be aware of. However, I think the biggest travesty to come from that is that the people who went down into these bases were called aquanauts, and we need to bring that back. Hitler escaped inside the Earth. He was relating back to what I talked about in previous The idea being that the Nazis at the Space 221 were supposedly
Bro.
looking for Agartha, which keep in mind would be the entire Earth's inside, found it, made...
Dude, the Agartha theory that there's a whole, like, hollow Earth and societies living within the Earth, and that's what the Nazis were looking for in, like, Antarctica and stuff. That's whack, dog. I don't know, man. I feel like they killed way too many Jews for this to be their motivation, okay? It's like, yes, we want to find the inside of the Earth. Also, let's kill Jews.
tunnels that led up to Berlin in Germany, and whenever Germany began losing the war, Hitler simply went underground into this underworld. So if you were to get to the secret plane of Agartha, it would theoretically be Nazis and giants. So do with that information.
Everyone trying to get down to Agartha. A mystical land of Nazis and giants. A place where children can frolic in the meadows.
Illuminati blood banks is exactly what it says. There are real-world programs where the rich can buy the blood of the young in order to get transfusions for it.
Let's go!
And there are things like blood facials that people do, and we are living in a dystopia. However,
I will buy the blood of the young.
Illuminati blood banks just says that this secret Illuminati organization has near infinite supplies for these for their members, so that they can always harvest the blood of the young to stay fit, which I hate to admit is one of the least outlandish on this entire list. Sacred geometry is that the idea that there are certain shapes and patterns in geometry that relate to the construction of the real world, so much so that God himself would be the geometric shape of life itself. And it gets into this whole idea that certain shapes can be used to summon different things, and so on and so forth. The Black Pope prophecy comes from a supposed prediction that popped up in the 1500s, specifically 1590, that was 112 phrases to describe every pope in existence. Not only everyone that came before, that everyone that was coming afterwards. Whoever made this is often switched around with people saying it being different saints or bishops in the church. This eventually leads to a final pope, which it says will bring the fall of Rome. However, this one, from everything I found, is pretty fake. Like, it had all of them right up until 1590 when it was written, and then after that, none of them made any sense applied to different popes or whatever. DMT beans is the fact that while on DMT, several different individuals have these shared hallucinations of something called clockwork elves, which appear as these tall, silvery, slender creatures that watch over them while they're high. Not only that, but there are several shared...
Watch over them while they're high? Dude, if you only see them when you're high because they're watching over when you're high, maybe it's because you're high, dog. You ever consider that?
Hallucinations involving syntax of life, and blah, blah, blah. Don't do drugs. The Missing Children Forest refers to a 700,000 acre forest in LA County, Los Angeles, in which children have gone missing with no evidence found afterwards. Originally, there was about 8 kids that went missing and was later pinned on a serial killer in the area, but since then, he's been in jail, and people have still gone missing in this forest.
That's
to the point
creepy.
that dozens of kids simply walk into the woods and never return. This can lead to tons of speculation,
Dude,
but it all...
who lets their kids go into the missing kids forest? You got a forest called the Missing Children's Forest. My kids are not going in that forest, okay? I'm not superstitious or anything, but if it's called the Missing Children Forest, you just don't let your children in that forest, you idiots.
Traces back to the idea of what in these
Morons.
woods is drawing kids in, and what's making them not be found. Solipsism is the concept that nothing outside of your own mind can be known. For example, we could all be in the Matrix right now, and everything we see be fake. We could be in alternate realities, and everything that we see is
This
an
isn't a
illusion,
theory.
blah, blah, blah. But the only thing you can know for sure
not
is
a
your
conspiracy.
mind. The fact that you are having thoughts right now, and that you created these thoughts, is the only thing that can be known for sure. And it is the base theory for the famous phrase, I think, therefore I am. Thule is a concept that has been traced back to the early Greek.
Oh my god, that's crazy.
In the idea that on all their maps, they had this region located far to the north known as Thule, in which they said that's where sea monsters came from, that's where these giants came from, etc., etc. There's different theories about, well, maybe it was Ireland, or maybe it was Norway, and whatever have you, but what's interesting is it's never been exactly laid down, and while all of the Greeks had sort of this unified idea of what Thule was and what was there, we can't find anything that exactly matches it in our modern text, so maybe it's something that
It's
has
just
been wrote down
Elbaf.
in a plate shift, or maybe it's something that never existed. Who knows? Die Glocke is German for the bell, and refers
Die
to secret
Glocke! Pronounced it terribly. Die Glocke! Yeah, baby.
super weapon research that occurred in World War II.
There is no Norway, only Thule.
Theories for this include things such as the Wunderwaffe or the Schrödergewehr, which is German for wonder weapon or sun rifle. The ideas for this being that the Germans were looking ways to concentrate radiation into these centralized waves as a form of attack, or electricity itself in these sort of like long-range tasers. Not only that, but there were records of them looking into teleportation and how to move people instantly over large distances.
Oh my
They were
God.
looking for these giant air plug cannons that would fire a piece of air large enough to take out planes, and it goes on, but this whole Die Glocke just relates to the idea that these Germans had working
Did he just call it the Glocke? He just called it the Glocke. These guys are out here trying to kill the Pillarmen. Oh my god! Another JoJo reference! Let's freaking go! More JoJo reference! Woo! I'm telling you, every conspiracy theory layer, iceberg thingo, has JoJo. It all comes back to JoJo.
models for these things, and that the reason they've been kept so secretive is because after the Allies won the war, they wanted to use that research themselves.
We're back with part 2 of Tier 3. You already know the drill at this point. I have a microphone now, so hopefully that helps. And let's get into it.
It does.
Arnold's
We
real
love
height
you.
is in reference to the actor Arnold Schwarzenegger, and this
what?
bizarre situation in which people don't know his real height, and even he has not said what his height is. So it comes down to people comparing him next to other known actors' height in the movies, and people guess anywhere between 5'10" to 6'2". I have no idea why this was in tier 3, since it's the only one that doesn't fit. But
What?
yeah, great way to start off part 2. National park closures is in reference to the fact that several national parks around the U.S. will periodically close for unknown reasons. This can range
Arnold Heights Bizarre Adventure.
anything from cleanup time to certain year time events when supposedly workers are off, that it doesn't make sense since national parks aren't exactly something that needs mediated, leading people to believe supernatural occurrences or things like I spoke of in my stairs video and so on and so forth, that there are the secretive phenomena that occur throughout U.S. national parks that the managers of them want to keep the public quiet of. Lake Baikal is referencing Lake Baikal in Russia and is the deepest lake in the world. At 5,387 feet, it's host to several mysteries, including that
it's a mile
of
deep.
aliens
That's
and
crazy.
sea monsters and things such as. When the lake was first discovered, several runes and etchings were found that depicted giant fish people walking in and out of the water and these giant serpents moving beneath the waves. It goes further than that, though. Declassified Russian documents show that researchers who went underwater to look for missing people came across these humanoid-looking creatures in silver suits, and whenever they approached these creatures, 3 people in the crew were instantly killed and 4 others injured.
Yikes.
Several lights have been seen both beneath the waves and above them and in the sky around, and people even report mirages of castles and old buildings on the shore that disappear with the blink of an eye. The dancing plague was a real-world phenomenon that occurred in 1518 in France. For whatever reason, a few people
Yo, this is terrifying. I've heard of this theory. This is scary as hell. I get goosebumps just thinking about the dancing plague. If you haven't heard this one yet, buckle your seatbelts.
in the middle of the town began dancing. A few more that began watching began dancing as well, and this went on and on for 2 months. During this time, about 400 people became involved, with roughly 24 dying of exhaustion. The story goes that the people who were dancing were crying, trying to get people to help them stop. Local shopkeepers were bringing food out to feed the people as they were dancing since they couldn't quit. And so
It was a plague where people literally danced until they died of exhaustion. They were crying, begging people to help them to stop dancing, but they couldn't. They just couldn't stop dancing. People needed to feed them while they were dancing because they just wouldn't stop until they just died of exhaustion. How scary is that? No, I know it's not a theory. It's something that happened. The theory is, I guess, why it happened.
to this day, it's just chalked up as mass hysteria.
People are saying it's mass hysteria. The theory is, come on, guys. People literally dance till just death? Many people? That's scary, dog. That's scary.
No one knows why the dancing plague happened or where it came from, and it just remains a weird story. Panspermia is a belief that life does exist in
Panspermia.
the universe through microorganisms. In other words, asteroids that pass by Earth or other places that maybe host microorganisms carry them through the stars, and that's where other life species can come from and things such as. It's pretty much just the idea that life exists everywhere around us, even if we don't see it. The WebDriver Torso is a bizarre YouTube channel that popped up in 2013.
Wait, what?
Since then, all the way into 2018, they upload these random videos that are just a red square and a blue block in
what?
different directions as beeping noises is played
What?
in the background. There are a total of 624,774 of these videos. And while
What?
Google has come out and said that it's merely just something to test the YouTube algorithm, the beeping is definitely
right.
odd, meaning leading many people to believe it's a sort of numbers broadcast or
That's
something
so
else creepy
weird.
shadow man. Toxoplasmosis is a real-world disease in which the parasite Toxoplasmodia enters the human body. While in the body of a healthy person, Toxoplasmodia does nothing. If someone is pregnant, it can cause severe damage to the baby. Other than that, it's not really a big deal, and the parasite is most often
Pretty
transferred
sad.
through cats. However, where the theory comes from is that studies have appeared showing that toxoplasmosis can cause neuroticism in the host. Now, while you may not think this is a big deal to people associated with parasites, keep in mind there are about 3 million confirmed cases of toxoplasmosis in the US every year.
Ooh,
The theory with this being that the parasite has drastically influenced not only American culture, but world culture for years
Oh
due to
my
influence
God,
on the
that's
psychology
so
of its host,
cool.
which again is a lot. Introspection rundown is a practice employed by Scientology in order to treat mental breakdowns. This has gone so much so to the point of saying that it is a replacement for psychology itself. While the church is very hush-hush about what happens during these procedures, it did come under scrutiny whenever someone died during one of them. Lisa Mcpherson was a woman who was a member of the Church of Scientology, and after suffering a mental breakdown in a car accident, members of the church came, took her from a hospital saying that she didn't believe in medical treatment, and brought her to a discreet location.
Bro, Scientology is so cringe. I hate Scientology. It's like one of my least favorite things.
Her body was found weeks later severely dehydrated and malnourished. Not only that, but she had
Oh,
hundreds
crap.
of insect bites on her, which the coroner later believed to be that of a cockroach. So that creates many questions about this.
What? Cockroaches don't even bite. That's really weird.
Scenario, did the cockroach bites happen before or after she died? And if they happened before she died, then what the heck is this introspection process that Scientology uses? The United States are an experiment relates to the idea of the Great Experiment, or the overarching idea that the United States was created in order to prove to the world if democracy could work. Where it gets into more of the conspiracy side is what powers wanted this experiment to happen, be it the Freemasons or the Illuminati, or some other creepy historical shadow organization. Belfield PsyOps I couldn't find anything on. I believe this is referring to the Belfield conspiracy, which is sort of an old joke. Belfield is a small town in Germany, and the joke goes like this. Have you ever been to Byfield? Do you know anyone from Byfield? Do you know anyone who's ever been to Byfield? Well, then Byfield simply doesn't exist. It's sort of a parody of the whole idea of crazy conspiracies that just say these blatantly giant things don't exist. Like, for example, in searching for this, I came across the theory that Finland doesn't exist, and that kind of got the point across. Online video game monitoring is exactly what it says, that the government and other agencies is watching online multiplayer games in order to monitor what people are saying and doing, which, considering the announcement Sony just made, is not far from the truth. John Babacone Lee was a man...
Dude, the government freaking listens to you when you Google things, okay? When you just talk about things. I was on the phone with my brother the other day, and I don't even know how it came up. We were talking about Harry Potter, and it's been a long time since we talked about Harry Potter. And I mentioned that I don't like Ron, because Ron's dumb. He's such a dumb character. And I open up YouTube, and the first thing on my recommended is Ron is not dumb. That was the first thing on my YouTube recommended. And I haven't looked up anything about Harry Potter in a long time for YouTube to actually show me that recommended video. Like, it's not like I was searching Harry Potter stuff. I haven't talked about Harry Potter in months. Stop saying Ron is different from the books like you think I'm a pleb that didn't read the books. Of course I read the books. Don't be cringe, Chad. Ron is actually smart. The movie's... Okay, shut up, Chad! Ron's an idiot! But that's not the point. The point is I opened up YouTube, and my #1 recommended video was Ron is not dumb. That was scary.
Arrested for murder in 1885 and sentenced to hang. In researching this, it seems like he didn't do it, or if he did do it, the evidence was circumstantial at best, since all the evidence
Sunshine daisies, bottom yellow. Turn this stupid fat rat yellow.
I could find was that he was a guy who lived near the woman who was murdered and had a cut on his arm, which meant she may have possibly fought back, which circumstantial at best. However, what's interesting about him is that when he was taken to execution, he was attempted to be hanged 3 times, all 3 times of which it didn't work. What happened is the trapdoor was tested out as he stood there. He then went and stood on it, to which the trapdoor was pulled but wouldn't open. He stepped off, the trapdoor was tested again, to which it opened fine, and this process repeated 3 times, which after finally the medical expert said that he wasn't going to be a part of it because God didn't want this man to hang.
Oh my god, that's so scary. Yo.
And instead, John was just given life in prison. It's an interesting story, especially since there were witnesses and this happened 3 times in a row. It leads to the idea that perhaps divine intervention didn't want John to die. RPG Insanity Training was a wild read. When I finally found information on it, it's the idea that Yakuza is paying off Nintendo and other game companies such as in order to promote insane behavior in their audience to promote further anarchy and disruption within communities and the world. So
like you need to pay people, like you need to coax people into anarchy and destruction. That's just the natural order of things, okay?
Yeah, don't play Animal Crossing.
What? Okay, we move on. Chat, nothing happened here. We move on. Yeah, don't blame him.
The Oz factor is the idea that much like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, during certain points, people can leave this plane of existence. For example, if you disassociate too hard, you can cross over to another nearby parallel universe, or at least a universe between universes. All the examples that I found in this were such as whenever you enter a building where it seems like none of the workers are there who should be there, or if you're ever walking down the street and interactions seem incredibly odd for a small amount of time, this could be signs that you are in a sort of space between spaces. Now I'll be honest here. Some of these titles are so vague, I could find nothing for them exactly. Like, there's so much stuff it could possibly mean that I'm simply going to have to take a guess, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm sorry about that, but I have no idea. So extreme continents, from everything I can figure out, either has to do with lost continents or the end points of known continents. These two actually kind of go hand in hand with each other. I found several theories that during tectonic plate shifts, lost continents, which are land masses that sunk below the ocean, I spoke of Lemuria in Tier 2, I believe, that whenever they meet the land and the land begins to slope off, this sort of area between continents is where civilizations used to exist. And that's the best I could do for this. Sorry if that is totally off the mark, but I promise I tried. Shaver's writings refers to the comics written by a man named Richard Shaver. His theory was that thousands of years ago, aliens came to Earth and after leaving offspring to populate the planet, flew back out to their home planet and left their children, or as he called them, Deros, here on Earth. His explanation fell in line with what I've mentioned before, the hollow Earth theory, or that of Agartha, and that these children live in underground caves and people who periodically go missing for whatever reason are being used as either food or just a torture source for these underground creatures. Kind of falls in line with the idea that this is not our home and it's someone else's, and at any moment we could essentially be wiped out. So only good thoughts on this channel. Porn control. Can I say porn? whatever. Porn control is
Porn
the idea
control,
that
let's
porn
go!
is used by mass media or global elites in order to make the populace submissive and compliant. The idea with this being people who watch porn have a
believe it.
sex drive for other people, which makes them less outgoing and
Yep,
less assertive
yep.
in situations,
Porn.
and generally makes a weaker populace, and therefore porn is used as a manner to disable the population for
True.
whatever these higher powers want.
I've always been saying that hentai is a super weapon devised by the Japanese intelligence military to get the entire world weakened and submissive, not wanting or having the ability to actually pleasure a real woman and therefore not having children. It is Japan's long-term plan to take over the world. Just my theory, but anyway, porn control, this is, yeah, obviously, porn control.
A temporary autonomous zone is more of a belief, especially one imposed by anarchists throughout history, with the idea that throughout periods of time, whenever government is infringing on culture too much, areas should crop up, or temporary autonomous zones as they're called, in which information could be exchanged freely and thoughts and ideas between people, and then they could disseminate and leave the autonomous zone, and these ideas could continue to proliferate. So from everything I read, essentially think of it as underground churches or secret book readings during book burning times throughout history and things such as. Basically, the whole idea that if a government is encroaching on culture or ideas too much, that people should come together and exchange them in secret. Henotheism is when someone believes...
Isn't porn control what Nux just does every night? Alright, Chad, shut up. You're not allowed to be that funny, okay? There's a level of humor. Okay, let me be clear here, okay? You're allowed to be funny, but you can't be that funny, okay? If we reach a level where you're too funny, it becomes too dangerous, and we will have to get rid of you. You understand? It's for the greater good.
in many gods, yet only worships one god. This is something that is commonly seen in old world history.
I am porn control. I don't know why that one's so funny. I don't know why that's so funny.
Where often people would believe in the hierarchy of gods in old legends, yet they would normally only go to churches or worship a specific one. This is just sort of the name to describe that. Quantum jumping is an idea in spiritual psychology and very closely relates to spiritual science. It is the idea that in times of stress, someone...
Spiritual science is a bit of a... interesting phrasing. I don't think anyone's ever said spiritual science before.
Can quantum jump to another version of themselves in a parallel universe in order to gain insight or information. This has a lot to do with self-enlightenment, and if you wanted to think of it as anything, kind of think of it as the Oz factor I mentioned earlier, only done on purpose in order to learn something. Fulcanelli is interesting because no one knows the identity of this man, and the only reason we know he exists is through his journals and students who say they learned under him.
So
Fulcanelli was a French alchemist. This relates back to the Philosopher's Stone that I mentioned earlier, but he wasn't just an alchemist, he was the best. So much so that his students say they would routinely see him turn 100 grams of iron into gold and things such as. Considering that he would have operated in, I believe, the 1500s, any practices that he would have been doing would be far ahead of his time, yet again, we don't know his identity. This leads theories for everything that he was an alien or the devil, so figure out somewhere in the middle what you want him to be. French viper releases is exactly what it sounds like. Several deadly viper species popped up in France within the last 20 to 30 years, with the idea being that secret organizations or the French government themselves are purposefully doing it either to keep people out of the woods or control the populations of various species.
Vipers aren't even indigenous to France, are they? That's creepy, dog. Damn.
Of animal. Although the latter doesn't make that much sense because
Vipers
if you wanted to do that,
right?
why make them venomous? Grey goo is another concept that has to do with singularity that again I mentioned in tier 2, or ideas of technology taking over. It essentially gets to the idea that nanotech will commit something called ecophagy, which translates to literally eating the habitat. The idea being that at some point a nanotech will be developed that only knows to reproduce itself over and over again. And if it sees humanity as a threat to this initiative, it will simply eat everything, and I mean everything.
Let's go.
Habitat, landmass, biomass, all of it, and create a grey goo across the planet of itself.
Pretty scary.
It's one of those cataclysmic events in which we could wipe ourselves out, which is talked about several times before and will be mentioned several times again.
Let's go.
Mach's principle is an idea in theoretical physics and makes us ask the question of why some things are held in orbit while other things are pushed away. The description or example that's most common is this. If you were to stand in a field and look directly up at the stars and hold your arms out to your side and spin around, then why do the stars stay in orbit as you spin while your arms are being pulled out from you? It essentially comes back to the idea that while in motion, things near you are pushed away and things away from you are kept in a relative position. It's a weird idea that has to do with, again, theoretical physics, but that's basically the principle of it, and it's used to explain a lot of natural phenomena. Volcani, I have no idea how to pronounce that, is a series of forests that occur in the Latvian area of Europe, in which these giant stones are assembled into these piles, and no one knows why. Theories have originally ranged that maybe a castle was going to be built there and just hadn't, but there's no record of that throughout history. To giants putting the stones there, there's giants again. What's even weirder is that it seems these stones periodically move. Never enough to be widely noticed or able to be pointed at by everyone, but just enough to keep the local park people suspicious that they're being moved. Keep in mind, these are really big rocks. It's not like some kid could just come throw them into another pile if they wanted. It would take some deliberate brute force of nature. This has led to people around the area considering it a spiritual site, and it is a very popular destination for yogis and witches and things such as. Deep ecology fast.
Some guy took a really big shit, and then he just put rocks there. That's my theory. Comes back to the forest to take a big dumper somewhere else, moves the rocks a little bit, you know what I'm saying?
Spiritual side, and it is a very
Funny how my arms are even more secure than the distant stars. Suspicious, isn't it?
popular destination for yogis and witches and things such as. Deep ecology fascism is a combination of two different ideologies. Deep ecology is the idea that nature should not only be preserved, but that nature itself is alive and should be treated as such. While fascism is, for this purpose, the idea of preserving original ideas and circumstances for future generations. So if you were to combine the two, it would be the idea of preserving nature to such a ridiculous degree as if nature itself was alive, which would essentially treat any crime against nature as a crime against man. Deathworm relates to that of the Mongolian Deathworm, in which the desert of Mongolia, the locals have legends of a giant serpent or worm that lives beneath the sand, and that people who are caught out there by themselves are swallowed up by it. This is backed up by reports in the area of people going missing with no body being found in the desert, and these odd trails being left in the sand for seemingly no reason. I don't even know if I can talk about this one either. It's exactly what it looks like. It's a joke off of Family Guy, and says that the government developed one in the 80s.
Oh, give
and
me
I'm
a
not
break.
kidding. KKK funded by governments is exactly what it sounds like. The idea that the government has funded the Ku Klux Klan in order to keep down minorities throughout history.
That's
not
a
just our
theory?
government, but that anyone
That's
had back
so
in its team.
scary.
So,
Holy
The
crap.
Titanic didn't sink actually has more plausible information.
Dude, the Titanic didn't sink theory is really scary. Yo, chat, before that, I have a joke for you. Chat, you ready? You want to hear a joke? You ready for some funny? You want to hear a joke? Hope I'm not building it up too much. Ready? You want to hear a funny joke? All right. How do you think the unthinkable with an iceberg? How do you not get it? Why do people don't get it? Chat, you guys suck. If you don't, how do you not get it? Oh my god, you don't actually get it? How do you think the unthinkable with an iceberg? How do you think oh my god, dude. It's a Titanic joke. You guys suck. That was a funny joke, okay? Shut up. It was funny. That was funny. Cringe. Shut up. That was based, okay? That was a funny joke. It's just not funny. You're just stupid, okay? You didn't understand. You didn't understand the joke.
Behind it than any other conspiracy in this tier. The company that owned the Titanic, White Star Line, which keep in mind one of the partial owners was JP Morgan, had another ship in their fleet called the Olympia. Most people have it in their mind that the Titanic was way larger than any other ship at its time, but that's not necessarily true. For example, the Olympia, which was another ship owned by the same company, was very similar in size and appearance. A few months before the Titanic set sail, the Olympia had an accident that damaged it seriously and supposedly was going to cost a lot of money to repair. The story is that the Olympia was replaced for the Titanic and simply names were changed between the two ships. And the Olympia was actually sunk as a whole insurance fraud move in order for the stockholders to get a return on their investment. There's a lot of sort of evidence that goes into this. For example, pictures of the Titanic as it's leaving seem to resemble the Olympia more than the Titanic itself. There are records of crewmen who were supposed to be hush-hush about it, calling the Olympia the Titanic in private. And even more so, the Californian, which was another ship in the vessel, the night the Titanic sunk, went to about the same spot, hung out for a few hours, and then left, implying that they were setting up something. It's very odd, and there's a whole lot of information about this, so I encourage you to check it out yourself.
Bro, that's a really cool theory. It makes sense too. That's actually a really cool theory.
Smithsonian suppression refers to the recently discovered event in which around 1900 the Smithsonian smashed thousands of giant human skulls in order to maintain the theory of evolution the way science saw it at the time. This doesn't just stop at skulls though. They destroyed other bones such as femurs that were 4 feet long because it didn't match the current theories at the time. I guess that's the way science worked back then. If it didn't support your theory, just destroy it.
I mean, science kind of works that way now. Okay, I'm not going to say more. I'm going to get banned. I don't want to get banned.
Skulls were found across North America, and not only would it have answered questions about immigration to North America before, the coming of Europe and whatnot, it would also have been an opportunity to study these giant humanoid creatures. But we can't, because someone in the 1900s from the Smithsonian didn't like that it didn't match their science project. So, yeah, do with that information what you will. And that is it for Tier 3. It was a little while between parts. I had some friends come over for the holidays.
Bro, alright, that is Tier 3 of 10 of the conspiracy theory iceberg. Actually crazy. Yo, this is so sick. I'm liking this so much. Like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitch. Stay weird, fam.